Tonight, an entire Queensland town evacuated as rescuers race against catastrophic floodwaters.
38 council areas now declared disasters, with so much of the state underwater.
Police crack down on thrill seekers in swollen rivers.
And first rain, now cyclonic winds lash the southeast.
This is 7 News with Patrick CONDREN and TALITHA CUMMINS.
Good evening. 38 Queensland council areas are now disaster declared as the state's flood crisis worsens. Rivers have burst their banks from Cairns down to the border and inland. The worst flooding is to the west and south of Rockhampton, and rivers are still rising. We begin our coverage tonight in Theodore, west of Bundaberg, which has experienced its worst flooding in history. Authorities are evacuating the entire town. ERIN Edwards reached the isolated community today. ERIN, not everyone wanted to go.
Pat, late this afternoon, police stopped asking and ordered forcible evacuations. People who wanted to stay now have no choice. Helicopters will keep removing people into the night before catastrophic flooding arrives.
Theodore, under siege, abandoned by its people.
Everything. Yeah. It's gone anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Made refugees by the river, residents waited to be rescued. The only dry road has become a landing pad for a convoy of helicopters.
Got separated from my mum and my sisters from the choppers, but hopefully I'll get on the next one.
The cotton, cattle and coal town west of Rockhampton is filling with floodwater. Its main street is 1 metre underwater. This was the evacuation centre, the RSL, where 100 already forced from their homes slept last night.
My daughter's lost all her stuff, Christmas presents, and I'm not sure what else.
It's the worst flood in the town's history. The Dawson is 14.59 metres and still rising.
A lot more water coming down, a lot more rain still falling. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 24, 48 hours.
110 people had asked to leave. Almost the whole town wants to evacuate.
Just a couple of changes of clothes, mainly for my son and his nappies and all his asthma medication and stuff.
They don't know what will be left when they return.
I have a little puppy dog, and you're not allowed on the, it's been very sad. There's a lot of women over there have been very upset because they had to leave their dogs.
Staying isn't an option. Cattle are stranded in the centre of town. Ferrying families and farmers to safety is a slow task, surrounded by rapidly rising water.
Theodore was designed by Walter Burley Griffin, a test run before he designed our country's capital, Canberra. Back then, no one could have predicted a flood like this.
Residents are being flown 10 minutes away to Mowra or Biloela. Families have been separated, different helicopters but the same destination, away from Theodore.
Food and water are being flown into evacuation centres along with medication and the Red Cross. The people of Theodore will see the water on its way to their homes from the air. And Pat, it is a devastating sight.
ERIN Edwards in Theodore, thank you.
More than 1,000 Queenslanders have now been evacuated from their homes, many of them on the Darling Downs. Peter Doherty is in Chinchilla. And Peter, how bad is it there?
Talitha, it is the worst flooding here since 1942, and there's still so much more water to flow through this town and others on the Darling Downs. It's part of Queensland country life, but that doesn't make it any easier.
Bloody devastating. Simple as that.
Chinchilla is flat, allowing the water to spread out, engulfing homes, businesses and livelihoods. In the centre of town, 30 shops have been flooded, including Steve HAMMERMEISTER's bike shop.
It's pretty extreme. I've never seen it this high, but yeah, there'll be a lot of mud and cleaning up.
At least 30 homes are flooded, some up to the top of their windows. When people try to get back on their feet, they'll be calling on Vinnies. It will need a hand too.
People are very generous. We get lots and lots of players in. So once it finds up, we'll be operating again.
Old-timers have seen it before, but 4-year-old Tom Allen has grown up in drought, and now the flood has taken his kindergarten.
The floodwaters go wreck everyone's house.
Power workers were today travelling pole to pole, cutting electricity in the disaster zone. And the bad news is all this water will remain for days. It's all got to empty into the CONDREN River, and it is still rising. Further east, the town of Dalby has also been hit hard. 100 homes are water affected, the worst flooding here since 1981. But even after possessions are gone, residents still hold on to their sense of humour.
So that's what you call a wet bar. We used to have a keg in there, but we don't need it at the moment.
Across the region, the damage to cotton and sorghum crops will run into the millions.
We've been in drought 10 out of the last 15 years. To get this rain, when it started back 3 months ago, was a wonderful thing, but we've had enough.
Small communities like Warra in between Dalby and Chinchilla have also been swamped. Now today in Chinchilla, water levels dropped slightly, but the latest news from the local disaster committee is not good. They expect the water level to start rising again due to the huge volume of water still on its way.
Not good news. Thanks, Pete. Well, hundreds of travellers and residents were stranded in evacuation centres at Warwick overnight when it was isolated by floodwaters. Michael Scanlan is there. And Michael, how did locals cope?
Talitha, they're staying positive, but there's still so much water covering the town. It's hard for many to get in and see the damage and start the cleanup. Locals are comparing this flood to 1974. This is the moment the Adsett Bridge went under, cutting Warwick in half.
Righto, people, move out of the way for the bus! Get out of the way!
Hundreds of locals gathered to watch the CONDREN River swell and swallow parts of their town. This morning, as the water receded, the crossing became a spectacle.
When we came back to look at the water got bigger.
The swift-running river destroyed the road.
It was just like a washing machine on both sides.
Enough to rival Queensland's biggest flood.
1974 they had the big flood, and it's probably much the same as it is now.
The local bakery went under. Owners Brad and Gail Steele could be out of operation for 2 weeks. They lost most of their stock. Electrical goods are a write-off.
One of our sandwich units, which would, I don't know what the weight would be, but it would take at least 6 to 8 men to lift it. That water tipped it on its side, lifted it, and then tipped it on its side.
Next door, Helen Harm spent the day cleaning her real estate business. She hasn't lost her sense of humour.
Look, absolute river frontage. Look at that on the Gold Coast. It's going to cost you millions. Here you're going to get away with it with a lot less.
More than 200 people, both tourists and locals, slept at the recreation centre.
We're stranded here, but the provisions that's been provided here is absolutely excellent.
A hot breakfast and warm hospitality helped them forget a dismal night. Talitha, more showers are predicted for Warwick. Locals hope they won't be heavy enough to make the flooding any worse. They'll believe the threat is over when the sun starts shining again.
Let's hope it's soon. Thanks, Michael.
The flood peak in some Queensland towns could still be at least a week away as water continues to drain into the catchments. Rivers are rising so quickly, drivers are getting caught by surprise.
On the roof, on the phone, a father and son in serious trouble.
Guys, we got a boat coming to pick you up, so just stay on top.
Rescuers in Bundaberg risked their lives to save them. The pair had driven around a warning sign.
I was thinking it's just not that high.
Can't believe, after all this rain, we've actually found someone here.
More frustration in the Riverview Caravan Park as long-time residents were hauled out.
What are we supposed to do? Where are we supposed to go? Church.
Bundaberg is isolated and more water is on the way.
The water's just breached the sandbags at the front and starting to come into the store.
Some good news, 7 people stranded in a national park near Gladstone since Christmas Day were rescued this morning.
Glad to be out of there, mate.
But further west, on the edge of Queensland's outback, Eidsvold is under threat, and 30 kilometres away, Mundubbera is going under.
Never thought I'd be swimming into your driveway.
The Demetrios Bridge, built 17 metres above the Burnett River, is beneath the water. 22 homes have been evacuated. At nearby Gayndah, more heartbreak.
Just pretty much picking up everything and leaving.
Hundreds of travellers are stranded in Childers.
See what happens. Sleep in the car, we have to.
Near Gladstone, water is raging over the Awunga Dam. The catchment is bigger than Sydney Harbour. The flood threat could last another week. These pictures were shot near Emerald on the Mansion cattle station. The homestead has never been flooded before. All that water has to go somewhere. Josh Adsett, 7 News.
Police have run out of patience with residents taking risks in the floodwaters and have started laying charges. After 30 swiftwater rescues overnight, one thrill seeker was handcuffed after diving into the flooded Bremer River at Ipswich.
Deliberate, dangerous and caught on camera. The 25-year-old ignored repeated warnings, jumping into the raging Bremer River.
We tried to tell him to don't do it, like we're scared.
Trying to swim to safety, he smashed into trees. He escaped unharmed, giving a proud wave to onlookers.
It was stupid how he did it. He was trying to get attention.
But he won't escape prosecution. He's been charged with unregulated high-risk activity.
They're absolutely moronic. We need the people working for the people who have been devastated by the floods, not creating more work.
Overnight, rescuers risked their lives to help Tony Duwong, who tried to cross a flooded causeway at Oxley.
After the engine stopped, I was very scared.
He called police from his truck. They breath tested him and are now considering laying charges. The southeast is still saturated. Parks and playgrounds are underwater and rivers are rising.
I haven't seen it like this for, must be near 20 years or something.
In Ipswich, spectators filled the sports stadium to watch the spectacle.
At 1 Mile Bridge, the Bremer River is at about 15 metres. The old bridge is nearly 2 metres under, and with dams still releasing, plenty more water will make its way here.
Plans to open all gates at Wivenhoe have been scaled back.
If they let any more out, I think that there'll be other major road closures.
While the heavy rain is set to ease, winds are cyclonic. Choppy surf and strong winds are a surfer's paradise on the Gold Coast.
It's a very nice day, actually.
But not for this kite surfer on Brisbane's Bayside. He wasn't even on the water when he caught this gust. Tracy Moran, 7 News.
And for the latest on the weather, Angie ASIMUS joins us now.
Pat, the upper trough responsible for flooding across the state is showing signs of moving on. Heavy rain will start to ease back to showers, particularly in the Wide Bay and further west in Theodore. We'll start to see a change overnight and tomorrow morning. The system's headed north for the Central Coast and Central Highlands. It has the potential to bring showers and thunderstorms with it, and it looks like Emerald will be next in line. The falls there could be around 100 millimetres. So while the worst of this rain is over for now, floodwaters are still rising, and it's going to be at least a couple of weeks until they subside. And I'll have more details in the weather shortly.
Thanks, Angie.